Why do we need to change our worldview? This is the Performatory Talks with Lene Lilledal.
I want to heal the planet, the whole planet, and everything that comes along with it. And I'm using the word heal very consciously in this context. I'm not saying I want to fix the planet, because that would imply that there's a problem to solve or that something is broken that I can just put back together. The word heal, to me, emphasizes regeneration, restoration, time, and creating the conditions needed to heal, rather than to push quick fixes that may just ease the symptoms temporarily. Our modern Western society is built upon Newtonian science. This gives rise to a mechanistic, materialistic, cause and effect approach to organizing our part of the system. This often leads to solutions that fail to take into account the deeper reasons why the problems exist in the first place. These solutions may actually harm the system further instead of healing it. Instead of viewing the universe as a machine composed of these elementary building blocks, scientists are discovering that the material world, ultimately, is a network of inseparable patterns of relationships. In fact, that the planet as a whole is a living, self-regulating system. This thinking is grounded in complexity science, which views all systems as part of a bigger system, also known as the whole system. In complexity science, you cannot separate a system from the whole, and every system within the whole has an influence and effect on everything else. The elements within a system may have widely different properties. However, on their own, they mean nothing. It is the nature and structure of the system that define it, not the properties of the individual parts. For example, if you were to observe an ant in isolation of the whole, you would never truly uncover what the ant is capable of. However, if you were to observe the ant in the context of the whole and how it relates and interacts to the whole, a pattern emerges. The first time I encountered this ecological worldview was when I attended a permaculture design course. In the 1970s, when the term permaculture was first developed and coined by David Holmgren and Bill Mullinson, the term meant permanent agriculture. Since then, the word in practice has evolved, and today the word means permanent culture. This distinction acknowledges that social aspects are essential to achieve truly sustainable systems. In essence, permaculture is about working with nature rather than against it. To me, the word nature in this represents the organic, the living, the beautiful and chaotic and complex interactions that is life. And contrary to the dominant views in the West, where we try to control the uncertainty and unpredictability of life, this is saying, in a way, that not only should we support it, we should embrace it. After I attended this course, I continued diving deeper into the ideas of permaculture. This is when I discovered regenerative design. Regenerative design is a whole systems design approach that aims to design for human and planetary health. Regenerative design goes beyond sustainability, as it not only aims to sustain natural systems, but also to regenerate, restore, and replenish them. Although regenerative design and permaculture seem very similar, and they build upon the same principles, regenerative design seems to focus even more on the social dimension. which is where my interests lie, and specifically within community development. This framework was developed by the Regeneration group, which is a world-leading organization when it comes to regenerative design, and they also work a lot with neighborhoods and community development. So instead of stepping into these neighborhoods with these ready-made blueprint solutions that often fail to consider the uniqueness of place in that particular context, this framework aims to uncover what is already there and what can evolve to become regenerative based upon the assets of the place and people, as well as their wishes, values, needs, and stories. So, this also seems pretty great if you ask me. I mean, to me it seems obvious that this is the way to go. Of course we should treat the planet as one big system. Of course we should look for core causes rather than solve superficial symptoms. Of course we should create space for living systems to evolve organically. I started my research with the idea that regenerative design was the answer to healing planet Earth and all its living systems. However, as I continued doing my research, it was becoming clear to me that, of course, this challenge is way too complex to have a simple solution. Fritjof Capra and Pierre Louisi, complexity scientists, wrote the following. As the 21st century unfolds, it's becoming more and more evident that the major problems of our time, energy, the environment, climate change, food security, financial security, cannot be understood in isolation. They are systemic problems, which means that they are all interconnected and interdependent. Ultimately, these problems must be seen as just different facets of one single crisis, which is largely a crisis of perception, a crisis of worldview. There are solutions to our time, some of them even simple. But they require a radical shift in our perceptions, our thinking, our values. Unfortunately, this fundamental change in society and science has not yet dawned on most of our political leaders, who fail to see how their so-called solutions affect future generations. As I was looking into these topics of regenerative design and whole systems healing, a pattern was emerging. There seemed to be a consensus amongst these experts saying that the biggest crisis of today is a crisis of consciousness. And that this, as Capra and Louisi stated, is what is causing all the other crises of our world. This made me question, what effect will these regenerative designs have if we don't have the mental models to use them correctly? How will these designs sustain in a system that pushes against these ideas and out of the system? I came upon a video, Systems Reset, where George Monbiot, journalist for The Guardian and an environmental activist, said, "Political failure is at heart failure of imagination. And in order to change the system, we have to smash the system with imagination." In line with this, Jan and Nys wrote in the book Advanced Imagineering, "No one can innovate a system on its own. But together we have a pretty good chance to change the system if only the people in charge of the system design it to unleash that self-organizing process of reordering the system in a more desired way. They have to learn to set the stage for innovation as collective creation." This gave me a new direction, and I began talking with people working within local governments. I currently believe that the local government should be for and by the people. I believe that citizens need to take ownership over their own needs, but in order for them to do so, they need a system that facilitates, stimulates, and supports them to do so. I see that there is a desire for change within local governments, but that they too need a system that facilitates, stimulates, and supports them to make this transition happen. We need to evolve past our modern Western society's worldview, and we have to become aware of how our actions affect the whole, locally, nationally, and globally. I believe that we need a fundamental change in our worldview. We have to change a narrative that is dominating the way we live our lives. And I invite you all to join me in this movement. Thank you.